Oh, man.
He didn't know it was White Boy Day either.
Tee-hee.
Potatoes.
Yep.
Definitely. Bilbo, after he snorted about, a pound of Coke, yeah.
Totally believed he was a 12-year-old girl.
And sneakless.
And possibly $1.
Fromage, bromage.
Boris, shut the fuck up! Broadcasting live from inside the power band, this is The Blah. In this episode, everybody dies. I'm your host, Kevin, a.k.a. the Mulverine, along with my intrepid companions, Ben, a.k.a. Jarhigo.
What's up?
And Chad, a.k.a. C-Lab Forever.
What's up?
Welcome to the podcast, folks. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the now cult favorite 1993 classic gorefest, True Romance, starring Christian Slater, Patricia Arquette, and a whole host of other incredible actors.
And every other actor from the 90s.
Literally every other great actor from the 90s. So let's start the show.
Benny, you mentioned wanting to do this kind of thing and Natural Born Killers. So I'm kind of curious, aside from the obvious, what drew you to revisiting this and doing it on the show and how you felt it held up?
Was this my pick?
It wasn't your pick per se, but I remember when we were like looking through the gigantic list of movies, you're like, I'd like to do something like a True Romance or a Natural Born Killers, and we were both like, yeah. So it might have just been as simple as that, but I'm just kind of curious if there was any thought there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have much commentary here except for the fact that there's sort of a pantheon of 90s movies that we hadn't dived into, and this is one of them, I think.
And how do you guys think it held up?
This movie absolutely holds up. For me, I guess it was very much like visiting an old violent friend that somehow gives you comfort. Like, this is such a great film, and I've seen it so many times. I haven't seen it in a long time, and I was just happily enjoying watching it 2 times. I could have watched it a third. There's nothing tired about it. There's nothing old about it. There's nothing that's sagging, drooping, doesn't hold up in any way. I think it's fantastic. It's earned its cult status. It's been regarded as like the 83rd greatest movie of all time, one of the greatest films of the 90s. It's absolutely true. It's so good.
You on that motorcycle, Benny?
I'm on that motorcycle, man. I had such a good time watching this.
Right?
I haven't seen it since the 90s.
Same.
And for whatever reason, I procrastinated watching it, and I was kind of, I don't know, I just wasn't very psyched to get into it for whatever reason. I don't know. I guess probably because I haven't seen this since the 90s, but in the 90s, I probably watched it like 600 times.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't know, but for whatever reason, I wasn't looking forward to it. And as soon as I started getting into it, I was just captivated, and I remained as such until the end of the movie, and then I wanted more.
Nice.
Oh, man.
So yeah, I'm on the motorcycle.
I had a similar experience. I didn't quite procrastinate, but I didn't jump all over it. I was like, oh yeah, True Romance, it's a great movie. As soon as I heard that opening track by Hans Zimmer, You're So Cool, that's the name of the track, I just was like, oh man. And a lot of comfort food action going on there, maybe made by a violent cook again, but similar situation. Sorry, go ahead, bud.
Yeah, I'd forgot about the Hans Zimmer xylophone track, and it was pitch perfect, no pun intended. As far as riding on motorcycles is concerned, I'm on the sidecar. Like I feel what you're putting down for sure. I think it held up relatively well, but not as much as I hoped it would. I kind of found in the very beginning, I was like, but as the movie picked up steam, it's just like such a fun ride. So it's definitely still a really good flick, and I'm glad it held up as well as it did. But it kind of just sat differently, which was interesting. It was interesting that it was a little bit of a different take. I took it a little differently this time. But similarly, it was quite good.
Wow, I wish you could see me. I was like sitting here with my arms up, like, no.
Like, fuck you. Yeah, I mean, this makes for a good show. Someone's got to be a curmudgeon, and it's usually me. So
no, I'm not saying that from a show perspective. I think I was like, oh, this will be just a guaranteed grand slam that we all love this movie. You know what I mean? So I'm like sitting here with my hands up in the air, going, no, man. But it's all good, dude. So, all right,
I think we should just cancel the podcast. And, you should go back and watch it again, and you should, in fact, keep watching it until you have no complaints, and then
there you go.
And then we'll come back and do it again.
Like the Clockwork Orange scene with my eyes toothpicked open.
Talk about a snipe, dude. I was literally just about to say, Ben, we need to strap him into a chair like in Clockwork Orange.
There you
go. Drop some LSD in your eyeballs.
Well, I have been known to go to the movies and movie theaters on LSD, so there you go.
I would be open to such.
Yeah, I guess the bit that jumped out at me early that isn't necessarily a criticism so much as like remembering my connection to it when I was a kid, because I probably saw this for the first time when I was like 16 or something, was that it's a teenage nerd's power fantasy, which
okay,
yeah, I mean, like it's pretty obvious. Like the comic book dude that can't get a girl gets a call girl called for him who falls in love with him. It's just like in the digging around to learn about the movie, I learned how autobiographical it was for Tarantino in a fantastical sense.
And Chad, really for us and the listeners of this show.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think it is like not in the sense of what happens, but in the sense of like, I don't know about you, but when I was 16, it's like that's what you want. You want to like, get the girl and have an adventure and be strong and be cool, like it's like perfectly obvious why it would be attractive to a young
Absolutely.
adult. But I'm not a young adult anymore, so it was just kind of interesting to like look back on it,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I not only loved it and had that nostalgic vibe going on, it also, I was able to see things in it with my adult eyes that I didn't necessarily see when I watched it 3,000 times back in the 90s. So I enjoyed that a lot. It made me enjoy the film even more.
That was in my early 20s when I first saw this, not 16, so I didn't really have that reaction that you had to it, Chad.
Mm-mm.
Same.
For me, it was like yet another even more densely populated, clever 90s movie with lots of violence, and, there were quite a few of them. So I wasn't thinking like, that's my teenage fantasy.
Sure.
At all.
It's interesting.
I'm not having the same kind of like watching it now and then thinking about it in those terms experience that you're having, obviously.
When you just said that you were in your early 20s and enjoyed it as like a romp, it immediately brought Kill Bill Volume 1 to mind, where I was probably in my early 20s when that one came out. And similarly, like it was a romp. So I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I connected with the comic book nerd comment. It's sort of because that's as much as it could be a teenage boy's kind of fantasy, definitely a comic book nerd fantasy as well. You're working at the comic shop, and then boom, you're out the door in an adventure, dude.
Yeah, it's a Bilbo Baggins kind of thing. Gandalf drags him out.
Exactly. Bilbo after he's snorted about, a pound of coke. Yeah. There you have it, folks. Clarence Bilbo Worley.
I kind of want to like you used to put Pink Floyd under Wizard of Oz. I want to put the fucking Lord of the Rings soundtrack under this. It would be horrible, and I would hate it, but I want to do it.
Yeah, I would too. That would be another cut that I would be into doing.
Does that mean Patricia Arquette was like Alabama Ganges or?
Totally. Samwise in Alabama. Yeah. I could totally see Alabama leaving Clarence for Samwise.
Nice crispy bacon.
Potatoes.
Potatoes.
Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Oh, we saved some for you, Mr. Frodo.
That's gearing up to be a good mashup.
It wasn't quite how I meant it.
Wait, what did you mean?
Well, she would be the closest match to that character, right? I mean,
that's how I took it.
She's crying over him at the end, and so
Yeah, that's fair.
Where Frodo's like, we've got to go through the forbidden swamp. And she's like, okie dokie, doggy daddy.
exactly.
Teehee.
What do you guys think about this in kind of the Tarantino pantheon, considering this was a very early work and he didn't end up directing it?
I wanted to talk about that. Ben, you want to go first?
I don't really have anything to say about the directing bit.
I think I remember at various times the nerd in me being like, I know in the beginning I didn't realize that Tarantino wrote it because I didn't really become aware of Tarantino until 94 when Pulp Fiction came out. So I hadn't seen Reservoir Dogs. Later, the nerd in me was kind of like, but Tarantino didn't direct it, so it's not as cool. But that being said, and having read some of the lore about this film, there is a nugget that I can drop now that relates exactly to this, and it's that the original Tarantino ending had Clarence dying and Alabama driving off kind of into the sunset to start a new life as a criminal. And Tony Scott totally fell in love with the characters, and he rewrote the ending. And Tarantino later said that he agreed with Scott that was the better direction to go for the end of the film. I think if you had put this film in the hands of almost anybody else, I'd say Tony Scott and maybe a handful of others, you might have gotten something way less satisfying in terms of a film. But I think he did a really good job with Tarantino material. It doesn't look like a Tarantino film. It looks like a Scott film. The dialogue is still there, that great Tarantino dialogue, some ad-libbing, and I think it's really, really great. I definitely appreciated Tony directing this movie more this time now than I did when I was younger. I always loved the movie, but, everybody fell in love with Tarantino after Pulp Fiction. And I think that this was somewhat sidelined because Tony Scott directed it. And I think that, I was glad to read that, this is in the Tarantino universe, these characters, and he doesn't refute this movie like he's done a few of the others that he hasn't directed. There's only been a couple, but he didn't shun it, and he didn't, sort of cast it down or anything like that. He totally embraces it. And I like that he appreciates what Tony did with the movie, and, that he considers it part of his pantheon. It's not one of the films by Quentin Tarantino, but it's, sort of adjacent in that list.
Yeah, I didn't realize that just how much the movies crossed over in terms of Tarantino's universe. Like, I picked up on bits and bobs and stuff, but...
Bits and bobs.
But, like, Alabama and Mr. White in Reservoir Dogs are actually connected, and... I actually didn't realize that Tarantino had this movie's screenplay and Reservoir Dogs screenplay, and Tony Scott wanted to do both, and he's like, you can only pick one, and then got $50K for this one, and that funded Reservoir Dogs. So it's kind of like his attempt to break into the industry, which I find fascinating as well.
And it was kind of interestingly complimentary, It's like you can only pick one. All right, I'll pick this one, and then, okay, I'll take that money, and I'll go do this other movie, and...
Yeah.
And then he ends up doing justice to the film, which I really like. Like, I think part of what I was trying to say was that it's hard to do justice to a Quentin Tarantino script, because he has a very particular style of, directing and shooting and all of that. And I think he did more than an admirable job of that.
You said that.
I did. I did say that.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been as enjoyable, I don't think, as a nonlinear movie. Because evidently the original screenplay was nonlinear, like Pulp Fiction. I liked that it was chronological. I think it just played better.
Same here. My recollection of the film was, it's a 2-hour movie, and it moves really quickly. And I forgot, and I think this plays to my comment before of saying I kind of saw it differently with adult eyes, was that the romance part of the film is very much the central part of the film between the two of them. And I don't think I appreciated when I was younger how well that's done in this movie. You really get that feeling of being in love and the romance of the whole thing between Bama and Worley throughout the movie. And they spend so much time, like I think a full hour almost of the movie is the setup and the ramp up, setting up the romance and then subsequently getting the coke. And I forgot that, and then everything else, California, the deal, all of that, all gets wrapped up fairly swiftly, but concisely in the last hour of the film.
Mm-hmm.
That really leapt out at me this time, the romance part of it and how important that was, from the opening narration by Arquette to really the closing narration by Arquette, it really leapt out at me, and I made me enjoy the film even more. It's like the action was great, the violence was great actors, all that, but that love story part of it was fantastic, and it really jumped out at me more this time.
Yeah, same.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the alternate ending or the original ending, and there was a little sub nugget that I saw where, and you probably just didn't mention this at the time and are aware of it, but when Clarence dies and she goes down to Mexico, she has a narration in it where she makes it clear that she never loved him. And I thought that that's really interesting because, like,
yes,
Tarantino's original thinking is the double cross. She's just using Clarence to get out of trouble and get some money. And he said he liked Scott's interpretation in combination with Scott's choice of tone, but said he would have done his own movie with a much different vibe. So I agree with you that the romantic element of this movie was one of the major draws, and it's interesting to think about, like, if it was just completely absent, because she would have just made it clear at the end that all of that was bullshit, and it probably would have been clear throughout because Tarantino probably would have made it clear, but it's just interesting because her character is very empty, and Tarantino's original intent with the character probably would have actually fleshed the character out more. Like, I like Arquette's performance, and I like the interaction between her and Slater in terms of the two characters, but, like, she's just an empty vessel. She just worships him, like, she has no real opinions of her own and kind of falls for that old two-dimensional female character trope a little bit. So
yeah,
it's
you're
kind
right.
of interesting to see what he would have done originally with her, being out for her own, safety and whatever, and didn't give a shit about Clarence. So it's just kind of an interesting kind of alternate universe ending.
Indeed. I was listening to you and I was like, first thinking that's so untrue, but you're absolutely right. Like, the character is written as somewhat two-dimensional, but if it, or comes across as somewhat two-dimensional, but if it had been stuck to the original, especially with that information coming at the end, it definitely would have fleshed her out more. And have been kind of interesting as a reveal at the end after, her being kind of so sweet throughout the film,
Yeah.
You're right about that.
I mean, she
Wow,
does.
that's good observation.
She does kind of, like, I don't know what word I would use, but, like, when she ends up conquering Gandolfini, like, which is a very powerful scene between the two of them, when she ends up winning and she's just like, fuck you, and, just pure vengeance and pure animal kind of instinct stuff. Like, she's not a two-dimensional character in that sense. Like, there are examples where, like, other things come out, and that's a testament to the performance. But yeah, generally, I felt that it was probably intentionally two-dimensional to kind of meet the old pulp romance novels of the day. But
yeah, it was. I mean, it's not entirely two-dimensional. There is some stuff in there that gives her some that fleshes Alabama out a little bit. And speaking to that, and speaking to the romance part that I was talking about, the scene on the billboard after they sleep together was really, really great. It was really about, like, it gives you that real feeling of, like, a couple of loners, who are not outgoing. I mean, Tarantino has even said this is his most autobiographical film, so it's like those two loners who, just kind of end up slamming into each other in the dark, and then they agree right then and there to love each other forever, and then they go off. It's very different than Natural Born Killers, which this movie is sort of lumped in with and compared to often. And I think it's great because it's organic how it happens. Like, it's believable how it happens that these two loners, could do that and fall for each other. And it's presented well in the script and on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a strength of the film for sure. Because if you don't have that, it's just people driving around shooting for cocaine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, here I go. I guess I'll tack it all in the end. I don't think that Alabama is two-dimensional at all. I don't think they spend enough time fleshing her out for sure. There are a couple bits in there that sort of set it up, like you said. But I always just took it as Clarence kind of is the type of person that will constantly talk to sort of hear himself talk.
Yeah.
And I just took it as she was a bit more on the passive side and was just sort of happy to because they're in love or whatever, was just sort of happy to listen to Clarence go on about his stupid fucking Clarenceisms, another conversation. Here's another conversation about Elvis, I agree that they could have done more to flesh her out, but I didn't take her as having no depth.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's what I meant, depth.
Consequently, I would have fucking hated if the ending was the other way around.
Yeah.
As violent as this movie is, there's a feel-good quality to it that is sort of a huge component of what's appealing about it. So
this is saving grace for sure.
There's my 2 cents.
That's
I like you.
Powerful 2 cents, dude. Exactly. That's exactly what I was saying a minute ago.
I agree. I think the stripping out of the romantic element would have really just left it two-dimensional. There you go. That's what would have been two-dimensional about it.
Let's talk about the cast.
Let's talk about the opening credits, where as the cast is rolling through, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I forgot about this.
I know, because there were so many heavy-hitting actors that had really small parts in this movie. We've talked about movies like this before, whether those actors were up and coming at the time, and I think that was more of the case in the other films that we discussed this topic. Might not have been the case in this film, but even still, just lends so much credibility and so much depth and so much weight to this film. Fleshes it out beautifully. And the list is endless. I would say it's a mix of heavy-hitting, super talented actors that were established already and a mix of some up-and-coming actors. Case in point, Gandolfini, was totally unknown at the time.
Brad Pitt.
Yeah, Brad Pitt too, totally.
If you'll indulge me for 2 seconds, I actually was so blown away by the opening credits that I just wrote the names down in order, and I can rattle them off. And I think it really I completely forgot about half the people in this. And I love how a Sam Jackson's in it for 40 seconds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, go for it.
But it's Christian Slater, Patricia Arquette, Dennis Hopper, Val Kilmer, Gary Oldman, Brad Pitt, Christopher Walken, Bronson Pinchot, Sam Jackson, Michael Rapaport, Saul Rubinek, Conchata Ferrell, James Gandolfini, Anna Thompson, Victor Argo, Paul Bates, Chris Penn, and Tom Sizemore. And every time a name comes on, you're just like, God damn.
Yeah.
When is some nobody going to show up on the screen? And it's just kind of doesn't happen.
Yeah, you forgot Kevin Corrigan too, man.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just going off of what was on the opening credits. There's plenty more bit parts and stuff, but
if only we could get Herzog to come in and read that list for you.
Rattle that off. It would take 15 minutes, but it'd be amazing.
James Gandolfini.
Dramatic pauses.
Yeah.
Samuel L. Jackson. The beauty of this movie is the violence and death, which I agree with.
I loved to your comment a minute ago, Benny. Brad Pitt as the stoner in this was just so funny.
God damn, so great, man.
Yeah, man, it's just such a funny bit part. He's so young. I don't think I'd ever seen him before that.
No, I probably hadn't either.
I might have, but I don't think I did.
I think he did this after Thelma and Louise and was kind of coming into his stardom, but
he did.
But he evidently improv'd everything in this, which is just another high five for him.
Oh, absolutely, man. And he also, Interview with the Vampire came out this same year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 2 very, very different roles.
With Slater.
With Slater, yeah, right, exactly. And he was sort of panned in Interview with the Vampire, because...
Nah, he was good.
No, I thought he was... I thought he was great. You thought he was great, for sure. A lot of critics panned him because, he's so good looking. They were like, oh, it's not believable. I was like, what? No.
I have such a soft spot for Brad Pitt, man. I
He
think
is. He's done a lot of great stuff. I mean, there's a few things that he's done that I've been like, but
yeah, whatever.
More often than not, his body of work is actually really, really pretty impressive, man. Interestingly about Pitt is that it's really roles like this that show you what he really is capable of, because you can, there's plenty of movies he's done, like, Mr. and Mrs. Smith and ilk like that. That's just sort of like, I don't know what you call it, Saturday matinee blockbuster or whatever, kind of throwaways. But like this movie, like what he does with those few lines as Stoner Floyd, just really great and really hysterically funny too, man. Like
super funny. Gandolfini
comes the first time. He's like, motherfucker condescending me, freaking kill you. Like, yeah, you're going to kill him, right? Yeah. And this is one of the lines that I never forgot. It was from him. Just get some beer and cleaning products. Like so random, man. And a great...
like he's going to go on some crazy cleaning jag. Not happening. Oh, yeah, I'll get to that right after I take this next bong hit.
That's made out of a honey bottle.
Hey, man.
Love that. A quick little nugget about Pitt's character, that right before they go to the meet at the Beverly Ambassador, the hat he's wearing, he's got that kind of tie-dye Rasta hat on.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, he found that on the Venice boardwalk. Just lying on the ground. He took it home and washed it and used it for the movie.
It's funny.
Yeah, kind of random.
It fits perfectly, though.
Yep.
Definitely.
I didn't, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't realize Sam Jackson had such a short scene. I guess there was some stuff on the cutting room floor, but...
Oh, I completely forgot he was in this movie.
Yeah. And then when I saw his name in the credits, I was like, oh, he must have a part in this. Huh. He just gets blasted 30 seconds into the movie. It's like, oh, okay. Yep.
Totally.
I was wrong. Similar to Gary Oldman, man. I love Gary Oldman. He's so good in this.
Ugh.
Such a weird character.
It totally gave me professional vibes, but he's just so good in this.
He is. And he listed this and Lee Harvey Oswald as his two favorite roles. And rightly so, man. I mean, like Clarence calls him a mad dog at one point in the movie. And he's just spot on. It's exactly what he's like. Just a mad dog. Crazy.
I'll sum him up like this. He didn't know it was White Boy Day either.
Exactly.
He did not know it was White Boy Day.
Which is a hilarious line.
That's totally a hilarious line. That sequence with him, the same sequence where he's like pushing that light, was such a cool, dynamic way to shoot that scene.
Agreed.
Pointing the light around and stuff and fucking throwing it at him. Oh, God, it was just... like, Gary Oldman is... I've always had huge time. Like, tons. I've always had tons of time for Gary Oldman, and I've always kind of felt like he's one of the better living actors. And just his ability to go from his natural accent to just that... Like, it's just so impressive. Like, there's impressions, and then there's, like, fucking actually, like, creating a plausible... half Rasta kind of Detroit accent. It's just legendary stuff.
No, really.
Yeah, it's such a bizarre character. It's like it's sort of like a Rasta kind of thing, but not real. It's like when somebody does an impression, and it's not like a really accurate impression, but there's just some really funny character, like something really funny about it that speaks truth, and that's sort of how he played this. I think like it's such it struck me as like it really must have been his invention, the way he did it. Even the pointing with the like hanging lamp thing. I feel like that was something he must have like come up with.
Yeah, that sounds totally plausible.
It could be wrong, but
no, it's likely that he came up with that, dude. That's very Gary Oldman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my understanding from reading was that he didn't have a chance to read the script. And Tony Scott said, "You're a white guy who thinks he's a black guy." And he was like, "I'll do it."
White guy who thinks he's a Rasta. And he laughed and was like, "I'm in. You son of a bitch, I'm in."
I think just sticking on Gary for a second, going back to what Ben said and expounding, is that he not only does that, like with the accents, it's the roles themselves. He very much can slip into something that's a little bit more close to the surface, like Sirius Black, where he's like more of a regular person, but then even doing a regular person like Jim Gordon in the Batman series, like so good, man. He's so there. He's so in there. He's so committed. He's created such a rich character. And then I don't know if you guys are fans of. I'm a huge fan of Hannibal, which is the sequel to Silence of the Lambs. Like a lot of people don't like it, but it was done by Ridley Scott, and I love it, man. And Gary Oldman, like the part he plays in that is just mind blowing. He plays the part of Mason Verger, who is the guy who is like totally deformed by Hannibal Lecter, and the makeup and the voice and everything that he uses in that is just unreal. In fact, I'll try to find a clip that we can include in the show notes because it's worth seeing some of that. It's so good. What's his face from Fifth Element? Dracula. Everything he does, it has its own
Zorg.
Thank you, Zorg. That's a death for me for not knowing that. That was egregious.
Emanuel Zorg.
Jean-Baptiste.
Emanuel Zorg. The twisted cop in The Professional.
Oh, man.
Dude, that's my favorite role of his, I think, period. It's just, oh, God, I love that movie.
Got another nugget. He apparently based the character of Drexel, part of it anyway, on one of the actors from The Professional. And I can't remember that actor's name off the top of my head, but I thought that was kind of interesting and weird.
That actor's name was Bruce Greenwood.
And that actor's name was shirtless Bruce Greenwood. I don't know if you guys have ever seen him. He was in Star Trek as Commander Sulu. Aye, warp speed, Captain.
Thought he was in Star Trek as Chris Pine.
Oh, shit, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. I think we should do Vinz Clortho a solid and bring up his Val Kilmer as not Elvis, because I appreciated him bringing that to the fore in his guest appearance.
He did, yeah, that was good. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Nothing, just that I had forgotten that it was Val Kilmer as the king until it was brought up in our guest episode, but very much enjoyed not seeing his face and hearing his voice in this one.
Word up to Clortho. Go ahead, Ben.
Trick shot.
Trick shot Clortho.
Yeah, Val Kilmer as Elvis in the bathroom, man. It's one of my favorite things about this movie because it's funny, it's bizarre. It doesn't really have anything to do with the movie at large except to maybe showcase that, perhaps Clarence is maybe a little schizophrenic or something. But like Val Kilmer is just so delightful as Elvis and just, always love you, Clarence. Always will. That whole thing is just terrific. And yeah, it's just like this nice little icing on the cake, that
Agreed.
could have not been there and it still would have been a good movie, but it's just, it's just kind of surreal and funny and I always enjoyed it a lot.
Especially the second, or maybe it's not the second, but especially the final time when it saves his ass from the final shootout. Like it just is so pitch perfect coming out of the tension of that scene before the shootout. And then, the shootout happens while he's in the bathroom. Like it's just the choice of threading it in there was just a great way to break the tension and to kind of make it obvious that the king is saving his ass.
Well said. I agree with everything both of you just said. It's icing. It's really bizarre and cool and great. Yeah.
I like how you're trying to like hold yourself back. You're like, yeah, Kilmer's debut movie.
No, that was actually the opposite right there. I was like listening to what I was saying and I got like 3 words in and I was like, I really don't have anything to contribute here. I should just have not opened my mouth.
Dude, I liked the kind of couple of neurotic characters of Rapaport and Bronson Pinchot. Like those two added so much to this movie.
Yes.
I love Dick Ritchie, man. I love the name Dick Ritchie.
It's great. It's as good a name as Rapaport, if not better.
Yeah, definitely.
Him driving the car in that audition. I'm driving a car. hey, what the fuck you guys doing? She's just like, all right, we'll see you later, buddy.
And he gets the part.
I know. That's what's so great about it. And that woman is, she's been in a lot of great bit parts. You know, I've seen her a bunch of times. I couldn't name one where, like, specifically, but I love how she just cuts him right off. And he's like, that's great. That's great, Mr. Ritchie. That's great. You're very talented. You're a very talented actor. Okay, we'll be in touch. It's like, it sounds so disingenuous. And then he gets the part.
To be fair, it was pretty shit audition.
Yeah, but it's like that sometimes. You go in there and you're just like, wow, that sucked. And then they're like, oh, wow, you were amazing.
You're going to be on TJ Hooker.
Exactly.
I didn't recognize her at the time, but when I saw her IMDb, she was one of the nosy neighbors in Scissorhands.
Ooh, nice. Yes. Wow. Talk about a deep dive, dude.
In a little bit of a Kev moment of my own there.
Try a lot of bit of a Kev moment, bro.
But Pinchot as well. It was just fabulously cast for that part, like the yuppie wannabe director-y producer-y guy. His scene with the coke in the car, oh my fuck, it's so good.
He plays such a little actory douche too. He's great. Bronson Pinchot, he made his name as Balky on Perfect Strangers, which is it was a funny, goofy, fish out of water sitcom. I used to watch it when I was younger. I didn't realize how long it ran. It ran for like 8 years. So the last season of Perfect Strangers was wrapping when this movie came out, which I thought was an interesting little nugletta.
A nugletta.
A nugletta. Little nuggleberry yum yum. There's a lot of Italian guys in this movie. So nugletta, that's...
Yeah, I like it.
A little Italian derivative. Nugletta. Don Vincenzo. How about a nugletta? No? Is that death?
No, I'm with you.
You're just making me think of, hold on a moment here. I'll start that over.
Beep boop, beep boop, boop, beep boop, boop.
I want to have the right person in front of me. I'm sort of ejecting.
Nah,
not if it's right in front of you.
I'm panning through IMDb, which is open in front of me.
That's perfectly legal non-ejection move.
Oh my God. And I had him a second ago and I can't fucking find him. And the name is never going to come to me otherwise, because that's what's wrong with my brain these days. Well, anyways, the cop in the middle of the shootout scene at the end of the movie.
Yeah, Chris Penn. Nicky Dimes.
Chris Penn, thank you. He says, I come out from behind the couch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. It's the guy's a fucking wop. Hey, come out. On Chris Penn, too, though, the Bronson Pinchot bit where he's like, Officer Dimes, and kind of like in the middle of a shootout being like, can I go now? This is fucking hilarious, man.
He's awesome. And he was great in that role.
He played off of Saul Rubinek so well.
Oh my God. Saul Rubinek is one of my like underdog heroes of the acting community, man. He's not super famous, but he's done some really great work. And this is definitely up there.
Oh man. Yeah. Lee.
Oh, Lee. So good. Boris, shut the fuck up.
Coming home in a body bag.
Jesus, Elliot, you look like shit. It's disgusting. So great. And he's like, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Lee.
In a micro nugget, evidently that's Joel Silver.
Yes.
And when Scott was doing the auditioning with Saul, he did the audition, and then Scott said, "Oh, that was a perfect Silver," and Saul was like, "Who?" And he's like, "Yeah, Joel Silver." He's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." This is so great.
I read that too. I was like, thought that was fantastic.
You guys read the same article.
Hey.
No, I read that one too. I guess rounding out the cast in terms of the non-critical players, or maybe the like secondary cast, Chris Penn and Tom Sizemore were just great as the two cops.
I'm a huge Size fan. I've been a fan of Size forever, man. I love him. He's great. He was great in Black Hawk Down. He was great in Heat. Like, he's a great actor that I don't feel like he maybe gets the recognition, because he's had some very sizable roles and he's done some really fantastic work. I've always loved him, man.
Yeah, same.
What about Gandolfini? Do we even talk about him?
Ben, you want to chime in on either of those two dudes?
Oh no, I was just I It had been so long since I'd seen the movie. By the time the cops come in, I was just like, oh man, they are, just another example of they crammed so many actors into this, and they got some great people to do small parts that brought a lot of power to them.
Very much so.
No doubt. Sizemore is Horvath in Private Ryan too. Kev is another one I love him in.
Oh shit, that's right. And he has a really juicy part in that movie. He's great in that. Yeah, that is you're right about that. I forgot about that one. I was going to talk about Gandolfini. He is so menacing in this movie. Like when we first see him standing behind Hopper in the trailer, like, he just is standing there like waiting like the Shrike about to pounce. No, really, man.
Standing
Like
on the
I was
raft.
going to say like a cat, but it's really more menacing than that. He's just got
Right.
that look and that weird little sadistic kind of quarter smile. It's really scary, and it's like you're
Yeah.
almost waiting for him to do something, and then he doesn't. And then we get the whole scene with Alabama. It's a small part, but man, did he rock that! I mean, just completely rocked it. And the scene with Alabama, just I guess we can kind of segue here, yay, nay, whatever, is just phenomenal.
I got one quick thing before we go into that scene.
Well, I got other cast things too, quickly, So yeah, we can go back to that. Sure.
Well, I just mean on the Sizemore thing. I've got one quick thing on the Sizemore thing where it threads into Gandolfini, where you might have seen this too, but Sizemore was offered Gandolfini's role, but wasn't comfortable with the idea of acting out that scene with Arquette, and so he recommended Gandolfini, which is kind of cool.
Yes, that is a great nugget that I also read. I'm just trying to think other cast members before we move on to that scene. We talked about Saul. We talked about Bronson.
I know you want to talk about Paul Ben Victor.
That's the one guy I couldn't remember his name. Is Kevin Corrigan, him, and Victor Argo play the three additional Italian muscle guys. And again, I guess, I don't know, Chad just came up with a new one, a micro nugget. A micro nugget is that all three of those guys had just done Goodfellas, literally. I believe that same year or 2 years before. I'm not remembering when Goodfellas came out. It was either 91 or 93. But yeah, they were all in Goodfellas. I think that's all I got on cast.
Yeah, I think everything else we'll end up talking about in scene.
We did, I did Ed Lauder, who we have talked about in other films. He was in Real Genius. He played uncredited the police captain Quiggle.
That was a great little scene.
Yeah, I've always loved seeing Ed Lauder in movies. I think he's great. So, at any rate, moving on. So let's talk about the Gandolfini scene. I mentioned it a minute ago. We talked about coming back to it. It's such a powerful scene for both of those actors. Thoughts?
It's a fucking intense scene, man. But it's like such a powerful cinematic moment for sure. And I love that she's victorious, So often that's not the case in those types of scenes.
Yeah, it had been a while since I'd seen it, and I couldn't remember how it panned. I knew that she makes it through, but I couldn't remember how it panned out. And it kept me on the edge of my seat. Like when she first finds the corkscrew, I'm like, oh, does he stoop down and gloat, and she pokes him in the eye, and that's it. And I'm so glad that wasn't the case. But yeah, it's fucking intense. It's movies from that era in the 90s are so fucking violent.
Totally.
It's just compared to, modern movies, it's just mind-blowing, how violent they are.
Seriously, man. I also didn't remember the sequence exactly. I remember that she was triumphant, of course, but the whole ramp up, because it's a whole dance from minute one in the scene. She walks in, she's like, hi, just trying to play it off straight away. What are you doing?
It's like she's trying to play that two-dimensional character you were talking about.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
There you go, man. But this is where I think we see the real, more of that depth that Ben was talking about, because we get to see a lot from her here, and we get to see how savage she can become, like a feral cat. I mean, just savage at the end when she grabs the shotgun. It's just insane, man. Screaming and firing.
I kind of took it less as savage and more as pure survival mode, which is kind of the same thing, I guess. But
I think I know this may sound nitpicky in a nerd way, but I feel like Survival was shot 1 and possibly shot 2, and then the rest of the shots were just like savage, how dare you kind of.
That's fair.
There's a lot there. That's what's great about this scene, and that's what's great about Arquette, is that there's a lot going on there underneath, a lot of layers.
I think I'm on the motorcycle with you there, Kev.
Yeah, right on.
It's just such an iconic scene. It's amazing, and she's just so amazing in it.
I think also because she certainly portrayed or presented rather as a two-dimensional character. You know, this
Ish.
I mean, that's part of what makes the character great. Now that we're sort of unpacking this a little bit, is that she kind of looks like a Bim, you know, like that kind of blonde Bim, got the curves, got the boobs, but she's really not, you know. And we get the first taste of that out on the billboard, you know, when she's quote coming clean. And you know, this scene shows a lot of that too. I dig it. She's got heart, no pun intended.
And you mentioned it in a different way a minute ago, but like the crescendo of the sequence, you know, like you said, she comes in, so she says hi, and then he's like, "Where's Clarence and the Coke?" She's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. My name's Sadie." You know, and he's just like, "Fucking, what are you talking about?" And he's like giggling, and he's like, "You got heart, kid," throughout the sequence, and it's just it's something else, man. I think you used the word dance, and it's very much that.
Very much throughout the whole thing, all the way to the end, you know. And I gotta say, one scene that really, I don't know if it was disturbing is the right word, but when he throws her through the glass in the shower, like I was like really feeling that, man. I was like, ow, god damn, dude. Like talking about giant, very sharp shards of glass. Like it's amazing. She didn't cut herself 6 different ways, man. You know?
But then they do a great job of comic relief breaking that tension of getting thrown through the glass, where she's laughing at his cut forehead and he's like looking in the mirror and stuff. So it's a masterfully set up sequence.
She uses what she has, man, and she nails it. It nails him.
Yeah, there's this thing going on in this fight where it's almost like she's goading him and allowing certain things to happen so that she can better position herself for the final move, so to speak. And that's one of them. Also, I bet our buddy Bruno might have something to say about all that broken glass.
Fair enough. She definitely would have settled her nerves with a barefoot Bruno after that fight.
Hey.
No doubt. Do you want to comment on you commented on Gandolfini, like, lurking in the background of the Sicilian scene, and this is kind of where that kind of plays out, where he's no longer lurking, and he's explaining his psychosis when he talks about how easy it is to kill, and then he just wants to see the change in their faces or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He played that really well.
He played it beautifully, man. Like the way he kind of dominated her and then underestimated her and then came back up over the top again, you know. It didn't have any kind of formulaic stupidity to it that you've seen in so many movies, you know, where it was predictable. And that was what was great about it. And now I think the part that you don't expect is when he's like, thinks he's got her beat and he's sitting there smoking and talking about killing, you know, like it's somewhat unexpected. And then you think the whole scene's over and then it fires right back up again and just gets even more crazy, you know, but he's just phenomenal in it. It's a great example of a great actor taking a small scene and just destroying it.
Both of them, really.
Totally. But, you know, Gandolfini, like Patricia Arquette she was fairly well known at this time and he was not, you know, and then of course he just a few years later would go on to do The Sopranos and, well, knock it out of the park. R.I.P. Gandolfini. Let's talk about the Sicilian scene.
The big one. The big scene. I would argue it's the biggest scene in the movie. Tarantino certainly thinks so.
Absolutely.
I think it's bar none one of my favorite Hopper scenes ever.
It's pretty I don't know, man. I definitely have some reservations about it, and I've always had reservations about Tarantino's use of N-bombs in his movies. But, you know, removing that hesitation and just like saying out loud that it's kind of weird. It's a unbelievably executed scene and unbelievably acted scene.
I'll touch on that, and I'd sent you guys that snippet of commentary.
Yeah, that was cool. The video
from Tarantino talking about the origin of the story and, you know, how it came from, you know, like his second mom was a black woman named Jackie, and her brother Big D, who Samuel L. Jackson's character was supposedly based on, told him the story about the Moors and the Sicilians, and, you know, so that like the origin of it sort of smoothed the awkwardness of it out a little bit for me.
That's fair.
Because yeah, it's an incredible scene, but everything else aside, it does leave you feeling a little, I don't know, odd about your appreciation for the scene. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
You know, speaking to that part of it, like it's fiction and it's also real. That's a total oxymoron, what I just said, but
No, I know what you mean.
it's fiction, but it's real for 1993, and people used to do that. So
It's true to those characters, probably.
exactly. So from that sense, I don't feel bad and I don't feel awkward. I think less so. We've come across this topic before in the show, and I definitely have felt awkward, but not on this go round. Maybe it's because we've already kind of broken the ice on it. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe specifically I meant Tarantino in particular, regardless of the scene. Like, I think overuses the word and yeah, whatever. It's we don't need to go deep into the
I'm with you, man.
abyss of it. But like him in Pulp Fiction, for example, where he's acting out and like dropping N-bombs while drinking coffee in his bathrobe. It's just like, bro, the shock value is just not it's just not okay anymore, dude. Come on. But like you said, in the 90s there was a lot of that kind of shit going on. And in this particular case, I do agree with you that it's true to those characters, and in the sense that kind of shit would definitely be the way that those ideas were delivered in that trailer.
Well, also, you know, you got to think about Tarantino too and what he draws from. You know, like this is a guy with a massive, you know, he's a massive movie fan. He's a total movie nerd. He may be the ultimate movie nerd, you know? So what he draws from, you know, all those years that he was working at Video Archives, like, you know, he was a huge Hong Kong action movie fan. He watched so many blaxploitation movies, probably all of them, man, and stuff like that from the 60s, the 70s. Like, it's just part of his lexicon. He's drawing off that from other films. So I actually disagree that, like, in the Pulp Fiction scene, he threw it in for shock value. I mean, you could be totally right, but I don't think he did. He doesn't really seem to do anything without a reason in a movie, especially where it comes to dialogue, which is one of the great things about him. So, I don't know. That's the only thing I can say to that. But, you know, I could be wrong.
Sure.
It's definitely a liberal use.
No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah, it's less the word and more the implication, I think,
Yeah.
that's offensive in the scene, you know.
Sure.
You know, that because you might have, you know, that it would be upsetting that you might have black ancestors. You know what I mean? That's what's at play for me there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Wow.
I feel like aside from the unfortunate kind of undertones here, I do agree that it's true to the characters, and I do agree with you, Benny, that like Hopper's obviously trying to goad these guys as he knows he's going to die no matter what. So it's kind of like his final fuck you to these guys. But the way it's similar to the Gandolfini scene, like the way that it plays out and the way it crescendos, and it's just fucking masterful, man.
The dance that goes on between Walken and Hopper in the scene is just magic. Absolute magic.
And anyone else in either of those seats, I don't think it would have been as magic. Like walking, giggling, and be like, "I love this guy." Like it's so perfect.
No, it's really well done. Like I said, it's bar none one of my favorite Hopper scenes. You know, and in almost anything that he's done, he's a really interesting person. You know, and clearly there was a lot of partying going on in his younger days, you know, in the 60s. And like, he's been around the block, man, numerous times, seen a lot of stuff, done a lot of stuff, you know, and as he matured as a person and as an actor, he just got super interesting, man, you know, and this little scene is perfect. Even just him in the movie, all of the scenes that he has, you know, with Clarence, and he's just great.
He's excellent. Waterworld, not so much.
I kind of like Waterworld.
Really? That's so weird that you would say that. I don't. Where would you get such a baseless accusation, Ben? Perhaps it was the goggles missing one lens. I don't know. Or the shaved head, or the rags, or the cans of Smeat.
The same might be said of Walken, you know, with the that ping pong movie, whatever the hell that was. But I haven't actually seen that one. I just imagine it's probably not very good.
What is that? Like a Balls of Fury kind of type of?
I think it was Balls of Fury, wasn't it?
That's what's so great about Walken is he'll do just about anything.
He'll do anything. He really will.
He really does. And to that end, I'll use that as a segue, there's a deleted line from this movie that made it into Reservoir Dogs, or that was in Reservoir Dogs, that was supposed to be used in this movie, spoken by Walken. And the line is, "Oh, children, someone is sticking a red-hot poker up my asshole, and I don't know whose name is on the handle."
Right. Okay.
I brought it up because it was weird. It was funny. I knew Ben would love it. And
I'm just picturing Walken saying that now.
Well, that's what I was also hoping, was that Ben would start saying it.
I'll give it a shot. My Walken is weak these days.
It's all right, man. So is mine. Go for it. We'll both try it.
Children, there's a red hot poker up my ass. Don't laugh, please. You're interrupting.
Fucking him up, dude.
Sorry,
Come
man.
on.
I don't know whose hand is on the handle.
That was good, dude. You're at the disadvantage of not having it written down in front of you as well. But that was pretty damn close.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that.
All right, I'm going to give it a whirl.
Sure, no problem.
Lion's share.
I'm not crazy, you know. Oh, children.
That's good.
Someone is sticking a red-hot poker up my asshole, and I don't know whose name is on the handle. That was terrible. I had it in
That's
the
all
beginning
right.
and I lost
It's
it.
a tough one, man.
How about, are we good with the Sicilian scene?
Yeah, I think so.
Right, Benny?
I think so, yeah.
All right, let's move on to Bits and Bobs, or
I think it would be worth just touching on Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette's kind of chemistry and their characters' chemistry a little bit, including the ending of the movie, just because it's the whole point of the movie. But I didn't realize that I might be misremembering this, but I believe they had a fling as a result of their chemistry in this. And Christian Slater was seeing somebody at the time, so yeah, I saw some rando nugget in there about it. But it kind of makes sense because they do have a ton of chemistry on screen.
They do. I have another romance nugget about this movie. I'll save for later.
But I don't know. I just I agree with Benny where we mentioned early on that the Tarantino original ending would have really deflated a lot of the joy of this particular piece. But I also think that in terms of the huge reveal at the end, not being that she didn't give a shit about Clarence, but the reveal being that Clarence is actually going to grow up to become Snake Plissken with his eye patch was pretty awesome, and it blew me away.
I don't know, man. Something's rotten in Denmark.
Nice.
I completely forgot about the eye patch and immediately Googled Snake Plissken to make sure it was the same eye because I want Clarence to become jaded and go and do 3 tours in Siberia and become Snake Plissken because I think that'd be fucking amazing.
Here you go. And you missed the Hamlet reference. The Denmark reference was dropped numerous times in this movie.
I didn't miss
Numerous
the Hamlet
times. He didn't miss it.
No.
He just sallied forth. I was going to say that he turned into Dennis Hopper's character from Waterworld.
Fair enough.
Ooh.
Fair enough.
There you go.
Being that he's on the water with his eye patch.
Talk about a quantum loop of strangeness. There you go.
He is a smoker.
I'm kind of down with that, man.
That's true. Wow, we haven't had a really good quantum theory in a while.
No, not since my attempt to tie Forrest Gump to, what was it? Bill and Ted.
Bill and Ted.
Yeah. Which was ham-fisted, but I still enjoyed doing it.
Well, I mean, it was a good stab, but I mean, even by your own admission and then ours as well, it wasn't the strongest of the theories. But this one, this one's got some legs.
Sea legs
he
even?
goes down to Mexico. I like what you did there,
death.
man. Yeah, goes down to Mexico.
You're so cool.
You are. Whoa! Another meta reference. Jarhigo's crushing it right now.
I'll drop the xylophone "You're So Cool" bed track in there.
Definitely, dude. I want to drop a Jarhigo theme for that.
Definitely like a good barge jam.
The barge jam.
He goes down to Mexico. They go down to Mexico. The kid, he's got the eye patch, and later he gets a pair of goggles, and he goes out to sea, and then Waterworld happens.
I just want to see Kevin Costner versus Christian Slater. I think that'd be pretty good.
That would be good. I wonder have they ever been in anything together?
6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, bro. I have no idea. I hope so.
You're probably right.
Listeners, if you can answer that question, you'll get a shout out in our future podcast.
And possibly $1.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory craft there. I like that. What else about the end? That specifically, or were you talking about the shootout as well?
I just really wanted an excuse to call him Snake Plissken. I don't give a fuck. So.
Oh, that was it? You just wanted to ramp up to a snake play? Hey,
yeah,
man.
nah, I was just I was just being a bit of a shithead.
No, that's not shitty. I think that's like some nice deep nerdery there that you would go to that length just to drop that reference. I like it.
You know, just to try and drop a joke. I do think that my comment about like the way that Tony Scott chose to maintain the romance, like I am very much in agreement with what we were talking about early on. So I think it's, we're at the end. It's worth touching on the end and maybe revisiting that is a major component of the success of this story, in my opinion. That's pretty much it. And Snake Plissken.
No, I'll echo that because I agree. Plissken aside, I'll echo that. I agree. It's
Snake Plissken.
It's not just that. It's that I like the way that he fell in love with the characters and sort of tailored the ending to that while still doing justice and being faithful to Tarantino's original material and being faithful to the characters as well. Well, or not even so much that as doing some justice for them. Like I don't know. I find all of that very, very cool. Like there's a lot of like respect and creativity there that I really like. And I've always liked Tony Scott. Like his movies are a little different than his brothers, but he's done some really good ones, and I really dig that. So
Same. Here.
Here. Do we need to talk about the end, like the shootout end? Or, I mean, that's pretty...
I enjoyed it. I liked the Italian... Oh, you know what? There was one thing, actually, where during the final shootout, I immediately was like, clearly some of these like Snatch and Lockstock's ending shootout scenes kind of are lifting from this kind of idea. Whether intentional or hors d'oeuvres.
Fromage homage.
A fromage bromage.
Ooh, fromage bromage. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right, Chad. I think, it's a great shootout scene because it's violent. The feathers going everywhere, and the coke going everywhere, make it more chaotic, which is great. In addition to the fact that the screen is playing the movie, and so in many ways it's very typical. And I think just kind of riffing off what you said, like it's very typical now. But like you said, I think a lot of films borrowed from this film,
which is fine,
and I think that,
considering how much Tarantino borrowed,
which is
from
totally
others.
fine. Yeah, I'm not criticizing anybody. I think it's I mean, we've definitely seen it now many, many times in many, many films. So I think the only other thing I wanted to say was everybody dies or nearly everybody dies in great. Oh, I didn't even realize that. How about that?
And that's it, folks.
And we're done.
That's it. We're quitting right now. Bye.
And we're done.
It's in Tarantino fashion. Nearly everybody dies, or everybody dies, and that's great. It's like you want to see that from a Tarantino movie, And I also think that the one thing that I really dug, that I've always loved, is like when two characters that you're rooting for are able to just kind of walk right out and nobody notices them.
But it's plausible as well.
Exactly. It's not over the top. They're not like hiding in the garbage chute.
The only, I think, possibly implausible part about that scene is it's not even that it's implausible. It's just random that Lee's bodyguards decide to like go rogue and they're like, fuck you, cops. Like that always just struck me as kind of funny, but also just kind of random.
Yeah, kind of dumb. I'm with you.
They were
on
like
that one.
two survivors of Nakatomi
weird.
Tower, and they were like, fuck you. I totally kind of got a Hans Gruber vibe off of those two.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, Benny. I don't even know if that's a gripes of Kev moment. Like, that's totally a plausible gripe. Just like, fuck you, cops. Like, okay. There you go.
Yeah, there's even like a little bit of like exposition there, where I think it's the long-haired blonde dude that's like, one thing you don't know about me, Lee, is I hate fucking cops.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I get it.
You hate him enough to die? I mean, you mentioned the feathers, and it brought to mind when Chris Penn is standing next to his cop partner dude, who gets shot in the gut and then dies like softly on the couch. That was really a cool little shot too. I suppose we're maybe transitioning to bits and bobs maybe, but like I like that little bit.
Oh, whatever. Oh, you're talking about Michael Beach when he sits down on
and
the
dies
couch?
softly there. Yeah. Bits and bobs.
Hey, I like what you did there.
My favorite part about the shootout scene at the end was that Dick Ritchie got away and went on to do his part in T.J. Hooker.
Oh shit,
Dude, you're right.
Because what did he do?
I was convinced he was going to die.
Didn't he go to the bathroom or something, Ben?
No, he just ran out.
How does that?
He threw something as a distraction. I think it was the Coke. He threw the suitcase of Coke up in the air and like both sides started shooting at it. And while they were shooting, he just kind of dipped out the door and ran down.
I like that shot of him just like noping down the hallway too. That was fucking great.
Yeah. It would have been awesome if there was a post-credit scene of his part in T.J. Hooker. Yeah. Little cameo from Shatner and everything. That would be great.
Okay, now you get your bits and bobs, dude. Bits and bobs with Chad.
No, it's not my bits and bobs, but it's just bits and bobs.
Oh, it is now.
No, it's your bits.
It's all you. I would love to throw out I didn't realize until after watching the version I watched where I realized it was the director's cut and
what's the
deal with director's cuts where it was the only the director's cut is the only version that's ever come out on Blu-ray or DVD. So like the theatrical was a fair bit shorter, less violent, blah blah blah. But there was one little micro nugget, to use the parlance of the episode, about Alabama shooting Nikki, where that's not how it was in the original cut. So I kind of like that. I kind of like that she ends up popping him in the side there.
It seems like a very painful way to get shot. That's a very like soft spot on your body, you know?
That would be rough, yeah.
Wait, did you just do a nugget in the bits and bobs section?
Maybe?
Yeah, he did.
Is that a death? Okay.
Nah.
I'm okay with that. I'll take a death.
I think we should.
Did he say this was
I
a
said it was a
nugget, or did he
micro
not?
nugget,
Ben.
so...
All right, well, that's all right.
I think in the future we should just write down our bits and bobs and then
submit
they
them.
should all be read. They should all be read by
a robot?
By Michael Caine.
By Michael Caine. Or Werner. Or Christopher Walken.
No, because Kev always Kev always does a kind of Michael Caine thing when he says bits and bobs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. That's why that's relevant.
That was not what I wasn't trying to channel him. It was sort of a generic. Maybe that's his work.
Yeah, it's kind of generic, but
I think Werner Herzog would read the deaths section, if anything. I mean, seems pretty obvious to me.
It's fair enough.
No question.
Anyone else have any bits and or bobs?
I only one, and it's just a comment on the way the movie was shot. Like, I really, in Detroit, Michigan's pretty far up, not unlike the Northeast, but you really get the sense of cold and dirty and wind in the opening and in most of the certainly the exterior shots.
The train
in
area.
Detroit. I don't even know if this was shot in Detroit. Yes, the train area, the trailer, like all of that. Like, it just, I like the way it was shot. And then when you get to California, you get that very warm feeling, like in terms of the way it was shot. So it was just something I appreciated this time around,
I didn't even notice
Kudos
that.
to Tony and his cinematographer. But it's always great when you can watch something and you can kind of feel the weather, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Mothman Prophecies with Laura Linney and Richard Gere.
Nope.
It's somewhat of like a science fiction movie, but it's really based on allegedly true stuff, stories and events, and I really like it a lot. But that's another movie where it's just bleak and it's cold, and you just get that sense when you're watching it, So similarly with this,
Like a Fargo.
yeah, there you go. It's another good example.
I didn't pick up on the transition to the warm LA stuff. That's so obvious now that you say it, but that's a good point. Nuggets, deaths, ratings, gentlemen.
We're super lean on deaths this week.
We haven't gotten there yet, so that's a death. Nuggets.
As per usual, gentlemen, I recuse myself
Very
from
good,
the
sir.
Nuggets.
Very
Love
good.
that voice. Very good, sir. Barbara, you may proceed, sir.
I'll take that as my cue. Gary Oldman's 70-year-old mother was on set every day, and he would solicit her opinions on his performance, and I like that.
Gary Oldman's.
Why?
I don't know, but I like the idea of his mom sitting there while he, vanilla ices out with a fucking lamp and a scar on his face, and just like the vicious way that he kills everybody in that opening scene. And just, I love the idea of his old mom sitting there watching him do it.
Mom, what'd you think of that one? Oh, it was lovely, darling. It was just lovely.
Wasn't that plausible? But I love you, dear.
Oh, Gary, that was lovely.
Let's have a cup of tea, huh?
Oh, no, I couldn't.
You will. You will now.
Third right of refusal.
That's it. You got to say no 3 times. The kid at the end was Patricia Arquette's actual kid.
That's right.
Enzo.
Yeah, nice.
Whoa.
And I'm sorry, you said you broke up a little bit. Did you say Enrico Palazzo Arquette?
Enrico Palazzo. Yes, I did. Yep.
Hey, look, it's Enrico Palazzo.
Michael Rapaport was on Quaaludes on the roller coaster because he's terrified of them.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Quaaludes, really?
Yeah, I didn't read Quaaludes. I just read that he had a serious trouble with that.
You didn't read the nugget that I read then, motherfucker.
I feel you are so...
Did he score the ludes himself?
Yeah. The Dennis Leary Quaaludes thing. So good. I'm so what?
Oh, my God. You are so whipped up today about this nugget section.
I don't know. I'm trying to, you
Go
say
ahead.
you want some
it.
energy in the show. Well, here's my 5 minutes of energy.
This is your 5 minutes for the week.
Come on. Hurry up.
I think, yeah.
You got any nuggets?
Are you done?
I got one more.
Go.
In a deleted scene at the Sonny Chiba movie, Jack Black was an usher.
I love that nugget. I saw that one too. I would love to have seen him
Yeah, me too.
being an usher for 2 seconds.
Maybe if he broke out the saxoboom and...
I love me some Jack Black.
Same here, man. I just watched Nacho Libre the other day, which I think is so great and so underrated. And I also watched The Jackal after we talked about it. The Spa, man. Anyway, all right. So let's kick it off with some everybody's Kev's style actor nugs. Liam Neeson turned down the role that Walken eventually took.
I just can't see that.
I just can't see it either. And I'm just blown away that they even offered it to him first. I mean, look, he did a great job as Gerald in Next of Kin in terms of like a, where's Neeson from? Is he an Irishman?
He's Irish.
Or is he's Irish. Okay. So, it's not like it's unheard of, we've certainly seen a lot of Americans play terrible Irishmen, but not the other way around. He did great, but I could not see him in that role. No way. I mean, Christopher Walken barely looks like he could be a mafioso, Forget about Neeson.
Yeah, but it's Walken. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I hear you.
No, I'm saying he barely looks like a mafioso. Christopher Walken is not a very Italian-looking guy.
No.
And Neeson less so is what I'm saying.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was offered first, like that just seems bizarre to me. God, lots of actor ones. Okay. Drew Barrymore was considered first for the role of Alabama, but she was unavailable.
She would have done a decent job.
Pretty normal. I could see that, Uma was also considered for the role of Alabama. That, not so much.
Yeah.
But also not at all a surprise.
No, consider it.
Not at all a surprise, no. I think she found her feet when she played Mia Wallace.
No doubt.
2 years later. Interestingly enough, Brooke Shields, of all people, heavily lobbied to get the part of Alabama.
Yeah, I don't see that.
She's too... I don't know any other way to say this. Well, I probably do, but I can't think of it. She's like too kind of like white girl pretty. I don't know. Is that...
I was going to say good at 2 shoes.
Yeah, there you go. Goody 2 shoes, somewhat of the head cheerleader, maybe. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. Okay, here you go. Quentin Tarantino wrote the movie with Robert Carradine and Joan Cusack in mind.
Skolnick.
Louis Skolnick and Joan, who's I
don't see Joan, but I like the idea of Louis Skolnick being tricked by an Alabama that doesn't love him in the Tarantino version. So that makes sense in that sense.
This is so bizarre, and Tarantino is so talented with almost everything he does, including the casting, that I would actually love to see a version of this movie with these two people in it. It's never going to happen. They're too old now, but it would be super interesting because the impression I got from doing other readings, Chad, which you might have gotten too, was that he sort of intended it to be these kind of, as you kind of said in the beginning, this kind of nerd love kind of thing, this somewhat nerdy love story. I don't know. That's sort of what I got from some of the stuff I was reading. So at any rate, it's interesting,
Definitely out there.
Another actory one is, this is like 6 Degrees of the King, okay? So Arquette picks up a bust of Elvis and bashes Gandolfini over the head. She later goes on to marry Nick Cage, who is a massive Elvis fan, who subsequently dumps her and marries Lisa Marie Presley.
That's weird.
Right? And then they end up splitting up eventually.
Nick Cage is so weird. I love him, but he's weird.
He's an interesting guy.
That's definitely 6 Degrees.
Okay, here's another juicy little Oldman nugget. Dead Eye and the wig man that he used on Dracula. Both those things came from Dracula. The eye and the guy that did his wig work on Dracula.
That makes sense.
Pretty cool.
Wow.
Size plays a cop in this, a cop in Natural Born Killers, which is, I think the cop has the same name. I don't remember.
It was one movie at one point.
That's true. That's something that we didn't talk about. So he plays a cop in both, and I believe they have the same name. And in addition to him recommending Virgil, wait, I think you said this actually, that he was cast as Virgil originally.
Yeah.
I think you did say that. Yeah, that's right. Okay. The film playing in a couple of the scenes in the movie on the TV is Free Jack with Emilio Estevez and Anthony Hopkins. So weird.
Love it.
Yep. And then 2 more quickies. When he throws the suitcase, there's a D.A.R.E sticker on it.
Yes.
Did you notice that?
I did not.
Right?
But I love the D.A.R.E stuff.
Yeah, the D.A.R.E stuff is like drug prevention. So very
drug
ironic.
abuse resistance education.
It's an acronym.
That's it.
I was a D.A.R.E kid. I had a D.A.R.E shirt that I wore when I smoked tons of pot.
That's such a 90s thing to do, dude. Nicely done.
Yep.
Okay, last one. This is something I think I know Chad will appreciate, and it's something that you would probably normally suss out, is that there were 234 F-bombs in this movie.
Oh, hell yeah. That's a lot of pudding.
That's a lot of pudding.
You must dip your asses in this pudding.
Oh, yeah. Go get Alabama and bring her dumb ass back here.
Oh, yeah.
So that's all I got for the nuggets. But I guess this is a nugget. We should just talk about this for a quick second. And it can go here, is that, and for the folks at home too, really, this and Natural Born Killers were 2 scripts. One script originally. And the way that I read it, and I'm sure you read the same thing, I'd be surprised if you didn't, is that in the story of Natural Born Killers, as it's originally written, they go on the killing spree, or they're after the journalist, right? And then he sort of goes on the run, and then this is the movie that he writes while he's on the run based on a dream that he had. I think I'm remembering that correctly, which I think is pretty interesting and pretty cool.
There are a few different versions of that out there, so yeah.
Yeah, please expound on it. I don't...
There's nothing to really expound on other than I think I heard the opposite, which was while they're going to Mexico, he writes the script to Natural Born Killers, and then the Natural Born Killers try and hunt him down. Either way, it was like, I forget the guy's name, like Pat Avery or something, like whatever is one of his writing partners.
Roger Avery.
So evidently Roger Avery had a 50-page draft, and Tarantino took it away and came back with 500 pages, and it was both this movie and Natural Born Killers smashed together. So even if the details aren't known to the public, it's an interesting anecdote considering how they have a similar, they don't have a similar vibe, but like they have a similar history where Tarantino doesn't direct either of them.
And there's also a similar structure there about, the sort of the couple.
Yeah.
I mean, in Natural Born Killers, they're kind of these psycho killers, but in this, it's more about the romance, and it's everything else is sort of circumstance to it. Just as an interesting side note, Roger Avery, actually, his directorial debut was a film called Killing Zoe that I've seen a couple times. I don't know if anybody else has.
I think I have.
But it starred, pretty sure it was Julie Delpy, who's I think a French actress, possibly American. It was shot in France, and it's also starred Eric Stoltz, who's another Tarantino movie alum. So And that had a similar kind of tone. It was like a guy encounters a prostitute or a call girl or whatever, and goes on some gun crazy adventure. So
Side nugget.
it clearly on the brain of those two guys.
Shall we mosey on to deaths, please?
Deaths. Yeah, let's mosey. There's not a lot of deaths.
I had a dad joke death.
You did?
Yeah, I claimed it because it was an awful dad joke. I forget what it was. You liked it, but that didn't mean it wasn't a dad joke.
All right. DJ death
Yeah.
for you. I had a pretty terrible one because I couldn't remember Zorg's name.
Yeah.
And that's egregious.
It's pretty bad.
For somebody that loves the Fifth Element as much as I do. So, Zorg knowledge.
And then
fail.
I called him Emanuel Zorg, but it's Jean-Baptiste Emanuel.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Zorg.
Damn right.
Y'all are dead.
So that was kind of a death too.
Yeah. And then I sort of just got a little ahead of myself on the death section.
That,
And
yep.
Chad swiftly corrected me and then destroyed me
Hey, happens.
into 1,000 little
Happens to
particles.
the best of us.
That was good. So that's it for deaths. What about ratings?
Ratings. I'll go in the middle.
Do it. Oh, I guess that means I go first. Okay. I'm going to give this movie a 10.
Nice.
I've already listed all the reasons why. Cinematography, Tony Scott, the cast, Tarantino's script. I love the way that Tony Scott was faithful to did justice to the characters and changed the ending. And I love that Tarantino agreed with it. I don't know why I just said that. I think that particular point, because it's he's directing somebody else's material, and Tarantino always writes and directs his own stuff, I guess. So I think that's a particularly cool point. I mean, just the performances are so good. The story's pretty simple, but it is a romance story, and it's very central to the movie, and that's what makes this work. That contrasted with the coke insanity, and it's great. It moves quickly. Like before you know it, it's over. It's been 20-something years. Hell, it's been 28 years, and the movie is just. It's crazy. It's still so good. It holds up absolutely beautifully. I so enjoyed watching it. And, I didn't realize like how much that Hans Zimmer, You're So Cool xylophone song, it really gets in your brain, dude. And when I heard it, I just was like, wow, oh man, I forgot about that, and how great it was to hear that. Great, great movie. 10, 10, 10. Sorry, A+, A+, A+.
There you go. Well, yeah. The Stallone said it best. Movies rarely get above a 5 for me, so let this be a lesson to them. I feel like this movie is really enjoyable, and it definitely grew on me after the first 10 minutes. It just took me a little while to get into the swing of things. That said, it was, when I went into the algorithm, it ranked quite highly, and I think that when it was ranked on memory and not on viewing. And it definitely took a dip after this viewing. It doesn't mean it's not an enjoyable movie. It's just, I don't know. It just didn't hold up as well as I had hoped it would. I suppose I'm coming at it from less of a pure entertainment side, which I definitely feel like you guys are coming at it from, which I completely respect. And I think that the entertainment side of it is still there. Like, it's a really enjoyable film. But it went from an 8.3 on the algorithm down to a 5.7. The 8.3 stuff is like Total Recall, Full Metal Jacket, Silence of the Lambs, and The Goonies. And I just can't put it in that company. And I didn't look at the algorithm before giving it a number on this one, and it's now closer to a THX 1130A, Beverly Hills Cop, Casino. So like, it's in good company, True Lies. But yeah, it just wasn't quite as good as I remembered it.
Fair enough.
And you both fucking hate me, but that's okay.
You're a hater, man. Benny, give us some love.
I'm not a hater, I just crush a lot.
In regards to this movie, nothing is rotten in Denmark.
Nice.
Hey, the improbability drives back, baby.
Yeah, baby.
It is so cool. Make of that what you will.
Nice, nice. I love how you did that. Again, dude. So what's the actual numeric rating?
There isn't one.
That's the rating, Kev.
Got it. Sorry, I'm a little slow today, buddy. Sorry. Nothing is rotten in Denmark. That means it's a perfect score.
Yep.
For Denmark.
There you go.
I love it, man.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it's so good. Just so damn good. I'm sorry you were so upset about it, Chad.
I wasn't upset about it.
All right, fine.
I genuinely wasn't. I enjoyed it and I had a good time, but it just isn't the same as it was when I was 16, which is perfectly understandable.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm glad I'm not the same person I was when I was 16.
I know, right? Me too.
I think I think Benny, you made a great point about how, you know, when you saw it, you weren't 16, so therefore it's a completely different perspective, which I respect. You know, like I was such a fucking tween when I saw this, so it's a completely different thing for me.
Totally.
And what are we doing next week? C Lab O Rhythm Squirrel?
Arnie Classic, Running Man next week.
Oh, God. All righty. Folks, thanks for joining us for this episode of In This Episode, Everybody Dies. Hope you enjoyed True Romance. Stay tuned next week as we get into the Arnold Schwarzenegger classic, Running Man. We love you. So long.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
And that's going to wrap up this week's episode. You can support us in a number of wonderful ways, folks. You can tell that friend you have to check out the show. That would be super helpful. You can also rate us and review us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast nuggleberries. You can support us on Patreon. Our Patreon is patreon.com/EBD podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode in your podcast app of choice or at our website, ebd.fm/episodes/93. Don't forget to follow us on social media, folks. We have conversations going on around the web. And we use the handle @EBD Podcast. So please come join in on the conversation. We'd love to have you. Goodies and nuglets and nuggleberries and on the Instagram. So be sure to check that stuff out. Folks, stay tuned next week for Running Man. We hope you enjoyed this episode of True Romance. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time, folks. How about that?
And that's it, folks.
And we're done.
That's it. We're quitting right now. Bye.
And we're done. Beady, beady, beady. Stop into it.